Welcome back to my channel, guys. My name is Raggy, and today I'm going to be giving you my top 5 Pokemon game spin-offs. So, I did a video where I talked about my top 5 Pokemon games, and I restricted my choices literally to just the main series titles. I'm going to do a video now where I talk about which games that aren't main series titles are my favorites. So I'm choosing 5 in no particular order and for any old reason to share with you today. So, starting off with this list, not wasting any time, I am going to say Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Time. Now, I've mentioned in previous videos that Gen 4 was like my first big step into experiencing Pokemon, deep diving into it, because it was the first time I was ever able to play the games on a handheld console, rather than playing it on a computer or emulating it or whatever. But when I played through Pokemon Diamond, I was like so into it. I was all up in that meta. And to immerse myself even further, I actually bought Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Time because I saw commercials for it all over the place. It was clearly based on a lot of new Gen 4 Pokemon because they were all front and center. And the idea was just really cool to me because they presented it as like, what Pokemon are you? And I was like, what Pokemon am I? So I played this game and I did the test at the start of the game and it gave me Pikachu and I hated that, so I reset like half a dozen times until I tailored my answers to get the Pokemon that I actually wanted, and that is Charmander. And then I teamed him up with Chikorita. But I hope I'm not the only one that did that. I wasn't going to play as Pikachu. No. But I had a lot of fun playing through Explorers of Time, and I thought that the plot and characters were surprisingly involved. Characters like Grovyle, Dusknoir, they threw curveballs at me that I really wasn't expecting to experience in what was a Pokemon game. But it kept me raveled up in what was happening and invested in trying to get to the end. And when I got to the end, I was mind blown at the amount of content there actually was in the post-game. There's the game, and then there's, the post-game. There is so much to do. In fact, that I actually pretty much barely got anywhere through that. But I did actually beat the main game, so that's what was important to me. But I had so much fun doing it, and if ever I get the time in the future, I would love to replay that game as well. I have played other Explorer games from the series, Mystery Dungeon games from the series, and I didn't enjoy them as much, and I don't know if that was just because of new mechanics or I'm not sure why. Explorers of Time just resonated with me, really. Next on this list, I think, is probably going to be on pretty much everyone's list if they have played the game, and that is Pokemon Snap. Now, I'm talking about the original Pokemon Snap for the Nintendo 64, and this, unfortunately, is not a game that I ever owned, but wanted to own. Growing up, we were relatively poor. We grew up with a Sega, not a Nintendo, but we rented a Nintendo for a while, and one of the games we rented was Pokemon Snap. We also had a friend who had a Nintendo 64, and we played that game a lot at their house as well. And Pokemon Snap, this early in the Pokemon history, was such an important game because it was pretty much the first time we were allowed to explore environments in the Pokemon world by ourselves. I know it was, for all intents and purposes, a rail shooter, so you couldn't really explore it. You could only see as far as the game devs really wanted you to see. But it was still like this amazing experience where you could look around in with the scope of 360 degrees and just see whatever you wanted. And there was stuff happening every way you looked. And that was incredible and very important. I think Pokemon Snap had a great deal to do with the success that Pokemon sees today. I could be wrong about that, but that's how I feel about it. Certainly, if I'm honest, I actually haven't even played the new Pokemon Snap. I haven't seen quite as good a reception, and I think that might have something to do with how gaming is presented today as opposed to years ago, when things were, I want to say things were a little simpler back then. Game devs might have been a little more bold. I don't know. I might play the second one and do a video about that one in the future. We'll see. But yeah, I love Pokemon Snap, and so do you! Next on this list, another one that probably everyone is going to say if they've played it, or some variant of this game, is Pokemon Stadium. Now, I feel like a lot of people are going to say, no, Pokemon Stadium 2. Now, the reason I'm not saying Pokemon Stadium 2 is, 1, I haven't played it, and 2, Well, that's all I really needed. One good reason. I haven't played it. Pokemon Stadium was a game that, again, because we didn't actually grow up with a Nintendo 64, it was a game that I seldom got to play, but I got to play it at friends' houses and stuff like that. And similar to Pokemon Snap, it was good for immersing me in such a way that I felt like a real trainer. I felt like I was in a real Pokemon Stadium because I was a young child and I was able to use my imagination a lot more. But being able to feel like I was in a real Pokemon Stadium, having real Pokemon battles with the new cutting edge 3D graphics that were available, it really hit home for me. It made me feel so good inside. And an added bonus about these games was the mini games in them. They had like the Lickitung game, the Kakuna game, the Clefairy game. They had a bunch of like little mini games that you could play, and they were just a great time. And I remember having hours of fun. It was the kind of thing where you would turn the game on and you would ask yourself, like, okay, am I going to do Pokemon battles today or am I going to play the mini games? You had options, and that was great too. More content is never a bad thing. Next on this list it's questionable as to whether or not this is really a game, but I am going to go ahead and say Pokemon Ranch. Now, Pokemon Ranch, if you don't know what that is, was a game you could download on the Wii Shop. And it was essentially just a storage system for your Pokemon in Pokemon Diamond and Pearl and Platinum. But it was presented like it was an actual ranch. So you had your Mii character from the Wii walking around the ranch, and you could just dump your Pokemon from your DS into the ranch on the Wii, and then you could just go hang out with them. And I remember my brothers and I, because you could have multiple people use the ranch, right? So we had my Mii and both of my brothers' Miis just chilling out at this ranch, and we would all dump our Pokemon, and before we knew it, there were thousands of Pokemon just chilling in this ranch. And the more Pokemon there were, the more different types of Pokemon were. Just random events could happen. Like, once you got all of the unknown, they would do like a little event where they'd make like a keyboard and sing the alphabet for you. Or they'd do like a Pokemon march, or just cool stuff. And like, that's all the game really was. You could like zoom in on Pokemon, you could watch them, you could just chill. And that's what it was. And I remember my brothers and I, we would like dump our spare Pokemon into the ranch. And then we would just play Diamond and Pearl on our DSs and just chill in the living room while Pokemon Ranch was on. And it was like just this super cool immersive experience where we got to like watch our Pokemon play in the ranch while we played the game and did battles and stuff. And is it a game? Sort of. I'll give it a maybe. But I liked it, and probably a lot more than I've enjoyed a lot of other Pokemon spin-offs. It's certainly not a main series title. You could say it's DLC for a main series title. And if you want to look at it like that, then I would say that Pokemon Ranch is a perfect example of what DLC should offer to pretty much any game. Or something in that vein. So I love Pokemon Ranch. And if you don't know what it is, you should look it up. Added note, it was also the only way to legitimately catch a Mew. If you wanted to catch Mew in any game without using an event or a hack, you could follow an event that happened in Pokemon Ranch to be granted a Mew. There was like a catch and find, like a find and catch quest. Like the ranch owner would be like, oh, I really want to find this Pokemon, and they'd show you the silhouette of a Pokemon, and you'd have to go out and catch it and bring it to them within a certain amount of time, and they would reward you by giving you a rare Pokemon. And one such Pokemon that could happen was Mew. So there you go. Pokemon Ranch is a very important game. Lastly on this list, I have chosen Pokken Tournament for Wii U. Now, why haven't I chosen the one for the Switch? Yeah, I didn't play that one. No, but Pokken Tournament is what I would consider an important game for Pokemon fans, in the sense that, like, spin-offs had kind of stagnated. They were always story-driven. There was like the Explorers of Time series, there was the Trozei, there was the Pokemon Rangers series, and they were always like plot-driven with weird mechanics. But then you had Pokken Tournament just come from out of left field, and it was like, it's a fighting game. Have you ever played Tekken? It's like that, but with Pokemon. And I like fighting games. Fighting games are like, I'm not going to say that fighting games are my favorite, but I'm good at fighting games, so I like playing them. And then but with Pokemon now, I also really like fighting type Pokemon, and Pokken Tournament gave a lot of love to fighting type Pokemon. And maybe it's just my bias, but I believe that fighting type Pokemon typically don't get a lot of love compared to some other types. So there was that as well. Like to see the likes of Machamp and Lucario, like Lucario's always been popular, but to see other fighting type Pokemon just get some love in the sense that they would be a viable option in a fighting type game, it made sense. They added a lot of other Pokemon like Gardevoir, Gengar, and they're not fighting type Pokemon as well. But we love those Pokemon too. So it's always cool to see new Pokemon introduced and used in new cool ways. Pokken Tournament was a whole new way to enjoy something that was otherwise old and in need of a little bit of love. So I love Pokken Tournament. And if you haven't played it, you should give it a try. In any case, this has been my top 5 Pokemon game spin-offs. Comment down below which ones are your favorites. Do we agree? Do we disagree? Let me know. In any case, my name is Raggy Rog. If you enjoyed this content today, then please give the video a like and subscribe to the channel. Make sure to hit the bell icon as well, and then you can get instant updates anytime there's a new upload, and then you don't have to miss out ever again. My name is Raggy Rog. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.